From the center of the galaxy, this is ForceCenter, a show about Star Wars pop culture and the ultimate adventure, just surviving another weekend. But we're back for a Monday record and release for some Star Wars news. Breaking news from a long time ago, I'm Ken Napzok.
I'm Joseph Scrimshaw, and this is my coffee.
I'm Jennifer Landa, and I have coffee as well.
I finished mine.
You finished yours.
It's Grace's birthday today, so I woke up early, at least early for me, and went and got coffee early in the day. So it didn't help. It helped. It's good birthday morning, but I could use that.
You can see how much Jen and I will awaken during the entire episode, which will be fun.
Yes.
We are going to be talking some Star Wars news. As I said, the Acolyte begins. It's this week, the Acolyte release. We're going to talk about that Star Wars news, some stuff about Ahsoka. Great question. A lot coming your way right here. But first, we're going to let you know about Audible. That's right. Today's show is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and a 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/ForceCenter. Over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, or Kindle or MP3 player. See, I looked away. I have this memorized from 10 years of doing it, and I was like, why do I need to look down? And I messed it up. But you guys know. audibletrial.com/ForceCenter. We're going to recommend a book, Path of Deceit by Justina Ireland and Tessa Gratton, part of the High Republic. Of course, Phase 3 is moving along, and I'm going to catch up one day. Don't you worry. Download your free audiobook today by going to audibletrial.com/ForceCenter. Again, that's audibletrial.com/ForceCenter for your free audiobook. Help the show in the process. There you go. That's Audible. Now we got asks. Joseph, what do we got?
That is right. We are continuing to ask for people to subscribe to YouTube. I think a lot of our listeners have, but clearly the ask is worth doing because there keeps being, every time we put out an ask, there's a nice little jump. And we've gotten up to just about 8,800. We had an ambitious goal to get to 9,000 subscribers on YouTube by the premiere of The Acolyte. Unless a miracle happens, that's not going to happen. But we still strive, and we have gotten closer to 9,000 by stating that we are striving to 9,000. So our ask is, in the next 24 hours or so, as this thing is being released, a little bit more. If you want to sign up to YouTube, maybe we can make it to 9,000. But if we don't, that's fine, because we are on the path. And our next goal will be, we want to be at 10,000 subscribers by the time The Acolyte wraps. And that one, I'm going to be bold. I don't think that's as bonkers because we have a really fun and interesting opportunity, a fun and interesting time here where it's been a while since a live action Star Wars. Ahsoka was the last live action Star Wars. And of course, we were not covering it at the time because of the strikes. So this was going to be the first live action Star Wars show where we are actively on YouTube with our faces. So I am bold and excited about the amount of excitement and amount of views and interest and discovery that new live-action Star Wars shows generate. So I'm excited to see what kind of a jump we can make during The Acolyte, and we would love your help.
We would, and I'll add here this idea. ForceCenter has a little ForceCenter way of looking at things, and that does not mean it's overly super positive all the time. That means we love digging in deep and finding out what's there in the stories. And we feel we're pretty confident in the idea that, hey, the way we talk about it might be a nice, warm, receptive, comfortable place for Star Wars fans looking for that kind of just discussion about what it means and what it means to be a Star Wars fan. So if you've got someone in your life during the Acolyte who's like, oh, I like that new Star Wars show, I'd love to have a place to discuss it or hear some takes on it that aren't just all angry car dudes, anything like that. Let them know. Let them know. ForceCenter exists. As well as some other wonderful people out there, too. I want to shout out our friends, but that's our take on it there.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you enjoy what we do, let your Star Wars friends know, particularly, if they're looking for a place to have a deeper discussion about The Acolyte than like it, didn't, bad, good. We'll talk about what we do like and what we don't like, but we'll dive into what it's all about and the fun of it. So moving on from there, we're going to talk about some Star Wars and life adventures. Ken, you have had a partner birthday weekend bonanza. Did you get some Star Wars adventures in there? What else is going on?
No, not a lot of Star Wars in it. A little more Game of Thrones. I finished this project I've been working on for about 2 weeks on Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon, which was great. So kind of reconnected with the world I love over there so much. But not just, light and life. There you go. That's the Star Wars connection. Just trying to, celebrate a birthday, having some fun. We're still going to even celebrate it today's actual day. So we got some adventures planned tonight, some L.A. legend, historic, ghost-related areas we're going to check out.
Nice.
That's all I'll say. So it's going to be fun. Just some famous locations. So a good time. And that's my adventure. It's just light in life. Just trying to smile through all the darkness.
Jen, are you smiling through the darkness too? Is that your life adventure?
I want to hear more about that adventure that you're going to go on tonight. Well, you'll share after you've done it. That'll be exciting to hear.
Yeah.
Not too much. A lot of kids stuff, birthday parties. But I did go to a dance recital for my daughter yesterday, and the kiddies are dancing. It's really fun, and there was an interpretive dance solo. An older girl, I don't know, maybe a teenager, and everything looked cool. She had like this really cool black outfit with like a hood. And then she comes back on stage for the second part of the dance, and she whipped out a lightsaber, a red lightsaber. And I squealed. I think I was like the only person that was like, ah! I started cheering like a mad woman. And it was awesome. I felt like it was Acolyte inspired is what I want to say. But yeah, just really cool. There is nothing like interpretive dance with a lightsaber.
I want to see that in actual Star Wars. I mean, why not? We've seen so many different kind of Jedi. They want to bring light and life. Dance a little. Come on.
A little dance. I was still waiting for the Knights of Ren. That was my hope, is that they were going to be like the, what was that dance competition? Right? The Jabberwockies or whatever. They're going to be there dancing.
Yes, I was going to say something. The Boogie Nights of Ren, but that's a different kind of dancing. I didn't. Anyway, getting the coffee in and remembering jokes from 1999. Anyway, my Star Wars adventures were, one is just having a continued appreciation for everyone who makes storytelling in general, but also in particular film and television. I am working on getting a feature film made, and I'm learning more every week about everything that goes into it and the amount of effort required to make. Think of the film that you have seen that you think is the worst, most sloppily done, haphazard film you've ever seen, and dozens, if not hundreds of people worked incredibly hard to make that. I think that's a perspective that I always want to keep in mind when we're talking about, especially something like Star Wars. Everyone involved wants to do a good job, and sometimes it doesn't work for people. Sometimes it doesn't work for me, but man, so many people are working so hard to make something that they believe in. So that was a kind of a Star Wars adventure rolling in the back of my mind. But also, I have been wanting, since Leslye Headland gave an interview a long time ago saying one of the influences of the Acolyte was the Shaw Brothers studio of martial arts films, wanting to watch one of those. Got a great suggestions from listeners. And last night I watched the 36th Chamber of Shaolin to get ready for the Acolyte. And it was a ton of fun. The actual martial arts, of course, were great. It was really fun for me to see, where some of the stereotypes about the martial arts kung fu movies come from, and some of the cool stylistic things, but also just that constant reminder that, man, Star Wars is pulling from lots of things. I mean, the 36th Chamber of Shaolin is, about a person who is facing injustice in their community. So they go to train to be a monk who uses violence if they have to. And it really, really got me in the mood for Star Wars and for the Acolyte. So I'm very excited for that. And I want to thank everyone for the various recommendations, including that one that was recommended. So those are my Star Wars adventures. Any other life or Star Wars adventure thoughts before we dive into the news?
No, excited to do it. It's always fun. I'm enjoying the moments before a new Star Wars show. And it's been a while, but I want to make sure the Bad Batch is part of that too. But there's just a lot of anticipation. This has been years in the making, so I'm excited.
Years in the making, and it is a little different because Bad Batch we were all in love with, and we were waiting for that third season to bring us home, right? Then Kenobi and Ahsoka, and even Andor up to a point, we already have a relationship with these characters. So I think there's something really fresh and exciting about where is this all going to take us? What's going to happen? So the Acolyte is almost here. We're in fact going to try to release this episode early so you can maybe possibly listen or watch it before you actually watch the Acolyte. So try to, watch or listen to this now or wait and laugh at how wrong we are about our thoughts later when we're disproved in 24 hours. Anyway, There was a last-minute flurry of new spots and promos for the Acolyte. But before we dive in, we also had a related question from a patron on Patreon. This was sent in by Chris Ria. Chris said, "Are we getting too much Acolyte footage? It seems every time I open YouTube, Star Wars has posted another clip with new moments from the show. Now I have seen some things that I really wish I would have been a surprise, like Vernestra's light whip. How does the ForceCenter feel about it? Also, I got my wife and I tickets to Celebration 2025, and I'm hoping, among other things, to finally meet you there. May the Force be with you." So we've discussed this in the past, but it's been a while, and I think it's even a little different with something like Acolyte because it's so new to us. Like, when Kenobi promo was coming out, we were like watching him look over Luke Skywalker. Very familiar stuff. But there is a trend with the marketing to release more and more trailers. And then the few days before it'd be like, just this 30-minute commercial with one more shot, just this 30-second commercial with one more shot. I wanted to check in before we discuss some of those, how we're feeling about the Acolyte promo, if it's too much like Chris feels, or do we need to accept it's just the way it is? Jennifer, how do you react to the ongoing promo?
I do wonder how much they've shown us, because that's a good point about the light whip being a special reveal. That would have been really cool. I think that I was trying to go back to in my mind with The Mandalorian, which is not fair because that basically launched with the Disney Plus streaming platform, right? So I don't really remember what they showed. And Andor was pretty good. I don't know. I do feel like we've gotten a lot. I feel like we've seen a lot. Is it going to amount to anything? I don't know. Will it spoil some things? Maybe. I'm just now actively avoiding all of it, to be honest. I really am. If I see it in my social media or someone shares it, I don't watch it. So I see the billboards everywhere. So they're trying hard to make people aware that there is a new Star Wars show coming out. We'll see if it works.
Yeah. Ken, how do you feel about the steady drip that adds a little bit more as we go?
The steady drip. I totally get it, right? What you're talking about, Jen, is trying to get the word out to folks who just don't know, or folks who are like, new Star Wars, and where's Luke? Where's Leia? They're going to figure that out, and we're all aware of that here. But I think because of what we do and how long we've been doing it now, this is, like you mentioned, Joseph, discussed here before. I'm having 2014-15 flashbacks where I was just like, no, not one more TV spot before Force Awakens comes out. I don't want to see the Millennium Falcon on the snow planet because now I know it's going to be on a snow planet. And I would love a little docuseries tracing the history of spoilers, how we've gone from Billy D. Williams going, yeah, I played this character, Landa. He's kind of a bad guy, but he becomes a good guy. He does something in the end of the film that turns him around. Anyways, go see it. Like, we've gone from that to I don't want to know context. I don't even want to know quotes. There was something... Amanla Stenberg, I think, said something in an interview or a press event, maybe over at the UK event, where I was like, I don't want to, I didn't want to know that. Like, what? No. But I also think it's very personal because I got some friends. I think we all have some friends. Like we do not have the screeners for these ones, but we've had some screeners in the past. And I've had some friends who are like, you watched the first 8 of Bad Batch Season 2. What happened? Just tell me. And it's a mileage varies in perspective. I'm at the point, to end my rant here, of I'm like you, Jen. I'm scrolling past, not watching, not engaging unless we have to. And there's one today we're talking about that was great, and I loved it, and I'm okay with it. But yeah, Chris, I'm with you. Sometimes I just want to pull back.
Yeah, no, I think in my ideal world is a kind of all in the bubble fan. And actually, even for things that I'm not a fan of, I think I would personally love it if it became popular for everybody to Alfred Hitchcock their films and television shows, where they just walk out in front of a screen and say, I've made a new film. It's about this. And then we see like quick flashes, and that's it. Just let the creator sell me on it. I'd be happy with that myself, I don't need anything else. But I realize I am very much alone in that. That's not the way marketing works. So I do want to kind of accept it is what it is. And I understand the need to really promote to the general public. And I think the number of billboards are great and posters going up and, new trailers that there's this weird sort of divide of, I feel like, who needs to be advertised to is the general public. And is the general public really tracking like, those were 4 new shots of May? The only people who are tracking the 4 new shots of May or the Darksider are the people who are in the bubble and don't really need the advertising. So
Yes.
that I don't know the answer to that, and I'm sure experts do, of like, you're not actually successfully advertising it to outside of the bubble general interest people. You're just giving more to the in the bubble people like us. And fair enough, then it does generate episodes like we're doing today. We're going to talk about those. So hey, maybe that's the answer to that question. Big picture for me, I think I try not to gnash my teeth too much about it and just say this is the way that marketing works these days, and choose when to engage and when not to engage in all that. One good thing I think is I don't think it's good that social media has shattered into lots of different little social media sites, but I do think it is actually easier to avoid spoilers if you choose to, like you're talking about, Jen. There was a time for me where like I need to be on Twitter for, comedy reasons and for life reasons, and people are just going to tweet it out, so I can't avoid it. And now I feel like I can avoid things if I choose to. So I guess a blessing amongst the tragedies. Yeah. So yeah, I think in general, in spirit, we're with you, Chris. That less would be more for us. But since that isn't reality, and a lot of people are excited to talk about it, we're going to dive into some of those promos that have come out and have shared some more things. And if you're watching and listening, and you're like, no, I just want to watch the show in less than 24 hours, we totally understand, and we'll see you later, because we're going to talk about those some of those clips now. One of the things that was released this week was a new 30-second commercial called Awake. YouTube spot, I guess. I assume it aired on some televisions. And it featured more of the mysterious masked Darksider. There were a few more shots of this character, including them raising their red blade in front of May. And there were a lot of other kind of newer shots of May as well, I thought. And a warped voice that one would assume is the Darksider, but one could be wrong. This warped voice saying, the Jedi live in a dream, but an Acolyte can break the dream. Ken, did this trailer affect you? Did it hit you differently? Did it make you think about the show differently, about the dark side perspective, kind of having, what we assume is the words of a Darksider?
Yeah, and this combined with the story we're going to talk later kind of paint this picture of not what they're trying to do, but just like what might be coming our way in a story that has been pitched as a dark side story, a Sith story, through the eyes of this era. I liked it, and I'll be honest, I would not have watched this unless it was in the notes, right? I would have been like skipping this. Me and Jen Landa are skipping this one. But watching it, I really think this is an intriguing trailer. They've done a good job of just making me wonder what's coming next. We can talk about that dream and all that stuff, but yeah, it was a good little 30 seconds.
Yeah, I agree. Jen, I'm sorry if the show notes made you watch something that you wouldn't have otherwise, but since you did watch this, how did you feel about it?
No, I was like this. No, I did only watch it once, and I don't even know if I really fully absorbed it, because for me, I do like to take things frame by frame. And I did not with this. I just kind of let it wash over me. And what I gleaned from that was that this was told from the perspective I felt of May. This was the first time where I felt like May was more of like, I don't want to say the hero, but kind of the hero, and maybe her perspective on these things. And I liked that, because I was like, oh, wait, this is maybe the other side that will be presented, since we know that we'll get multiple perspectives. So yeah, I liked it. It was only 30 seconds. That's kind of incredible. It felt like a longer.
It felt like a lot more. Yeah, I feel like in some ways this is my favorite trailer, and I agree. I would not have watched it unless I felt like we should talk about this. This is the biggest thing going on. We should talk about it. But since the beginning, Leslye Headland has been talking about this as a show from the Darksider's perspective. And then I've loved all of the stuff we've gotten, but it's been very, very Jedi focused. And it has made some of the previous trailers are like, the Jedi have to fight this assassin. The Jedi have to figure out what's going on with this Darksider. And it's like, where's that dark side perspective? In this, I totally agree with you, Jen. It made me feel what May was going through. Like, kind of the headline is, oh, we're hearing the Darksider, but it was all about May. All of these additional shots of her waking up, cutting to her from kind of two different states of being, That one great shot where she wakes up, it looks like from a nightmare, and the camera kind of twists up with her, and you get that real visual gut punch of a confused perspective. The whole thing, I'm on a Hitchcock kick. The whole thing just felt very Hitchcockian in terms of like some of his bigger films like North by Northwest or Vertigo that are all about a confusion of identity, where you're not either somebody thinks you're not the person you are, to the point where you start to have almost this sort of existential, like, I'm not this person, but everybody else thinks I am. So am I, or can I make someone else be the person I want them to be? Just that incredible sense of confusion in identity was really powerful. It makes me really intrigued that by the dark side perspective, maybe it's not even like a dark sider who is certain of their perspective, but rather the perspective of someone like May, who is being seduced and is lost in the maze of the dark side and wants to believe some of it, wants to reject some of it. I don't know. I wanted to cover this because, like, we should talk about the dark sider, but this whole thing, hit me in the gut from the May perspective.
Yeah, I think you're both right, and it highlights what we might be getting from her. And I know there's a lot of speculation, and we're going to say this again: we don't have screeners. We have friends who've seen them, and every time they even try to talk about it with me, I just go, I don't want to hear that. So I don't, there's the speculation of, is she a twin? Is she, is she sleepwalking? Is she a somnambulist? But all that to say that you're finding someone at a key point in her life who is confused about things, or maybe has some pretty strong feelings about some things, but they're being challenged, and how you challenge those will determine how you grow and change. So I really like it coming to some of the stuff we're going to talk about, but just having her face to face with some of these big questions. Like you said, Joseph, I was with you up until here. I was like, the dark side perspective, they're all fighting the dark side. Now we maybe have someone going, hey, let me talk to you, which is dangerous. Lies, deceit.
Yeah. Let's talk about lies and deceits and listen to Saw Gerrera's advice. Don't do drugs, kid. Don't. What is the Jedi's dream? The Darksider said the Jedi live in a dream, but an Acolyte can break the dream. So, Jennifer, what do you think the Darksider is referencing? What do you think is the Jedi's dream?
I don't know. If I were to hear that voice, I would be like, no, I'm not falling for it. So
trust you.
Take your helmet off and say that. Yeah,
exactly. If it's presented, Sheev style, very, the Jedi live in a dream, then I may fall for it more. But there is something that's kind of like, what is it? Taking the red pill? Is that, I can't even remember my Matrix references, but there is some, there is something kind of like MAGA. It reminds me of MAGA a little bit, right? Like,
which is not actual point of Matrix. It's been co-opted, but yeah.
Exactly. Yes, I was listening to a discussion about that today. Anyways, the point is that, like, the Jedi are delusional. They're living in a fantasy world. We know what's really going on. We know the truth. We see through their lies and all of the manipulations, right? And obviously this person is lying. So yeah. That's what I got.
Yeah, I really agree. For me, it was a I was going to say a double-edged sword, but a double-bladed lightsaber. That, knowing that this show is about the Sith perspective, my first thought goes to exactly what you're talking about, Jen. Of just, this is Sith propaganda. This is the same old pamphlet that the Jedi have the dream of the world can be a better place. People can work together, and the truth is, it's a brutal, Sith eat Sith world, and they're living in a fake fantasy world, and they're liars, they're killers too, and all that standard Sheev propaganda. But I think in the context of this, I'm also wondering about the Jedi live in a dream they are living in a fantasy world where they are infallible and they have beaten the dark side, and that, like, not to get too much into kind of like guesses and all that, but like, is this Darksider in the mask? Is this a fallen Jedi? Is it somebody who is responding to the Jedi? Don't think any of their rank in modern days could ever fall to the dark side, and they're living in a fantasy world. So I'm curious about that too. Ken, This feels like such like a Family Feud question. What do you think the Jedi stream is? Buzz in and see if the poll agrees.
34 counts. I think. You're both meeting me where I'm at here. Of this idea of exactly the Jedi have this like, hey, wouldn't it be great if empathy and connection drove the beings of the galaxy, and let's help that, and let's bring peace, and that's what we do. We are the peacemakers. We try our best, but man, our order is starting to become full of hubris. Our order is showing cracks that we don't want to face, and I now go into even the previous conversation about May, like kind of find it's possible we find her in that spot of things have been done wrong. I've been treated wrong, or I have some questions and I'm being told not to have those questions. And now you got this act, well, not the Acolyte, but you got this dark side user, this Sith person just going, yeah, man, they're keeping it all from you. And I love what you said, Joseph, about, they think they're, to quote Boston Ass, they think they're so smarty. They think they're so big. And that that's not the reality. Let's live in the chaos here. It's the Joker's speech to Batman in Dark Knight Returns, right? A little chaos, and in that you're gonna find the actual truth, man. Find the truth, I'm excited about that. And it is presented so far in this clip. It's presented, like you said, Jen, different than. Not from a Jedi, not from It's presented from look what you could become. This is more real than what their lies.
Yeah,
can't hide this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. She's style is that I'm floating outside all of it and just observing. I'm just kind of observing it, and harder to do with a mask in a weird warped voice. Speaking of which, what did we think of the voice, Ken? What were your thoughts on the voice?
I went back to 2015. This is the 2015 flashback week for me. The first time I heard Kylo's voice. Might have been in that spot. I think there were some toys out there, and I think the toys were the first thing. And I remember going, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. And I'll say I didn't love the voice back in 2015. Now I like what it all means. I like the mask, kind of garbling Kylo, and the fact that Poe Dameron deals with that right away. It's one of my favorite moments of Force Awakens, as is for a lot of folks. So I had flashbacks where I don't know how I feel about this voice. It sounds almost too human. It sounds almost not garbled enough, or it's not even menacing enough. But then I kind of like that. I kind of like where we're going to go. I'm going to go lean on the lessons I learned in 2015. Where I really absolutely love what they did with Kylo. So I'm expecting this to be different. I don't think this is necessarily the same. Though some people point out the design of the mask has Knights of Ren kind of aspects to it and all those kind of things. And that's cool for me as well. But, remember that time, Joseph, when it was a little different? Where we're like, Kylo Ren's lightsaber was the hot button issue of the day, or Kylo Ren's voice. So I had a fun flashback of, it's not my favorite voice. Ooh, I've learned. Let's not worry about that. I'm excited to see what's coming.
I had the same reaction of just the kind of wanting to reserve judgment for the entire context. I think that the general style was more Kylo Ren-esque than Vader-esque. But anyway, I felt like it had some of Kylo's was almost like Darth Vader meets Mumblecore, right? And I think that ended up fitting the character in his generation and his perspective. This felt almost like the voice was just like a little pitched down. And for me, it made me think about hiding the identity of the Darksider and the possible mystery in this show that it's, it appears as though the show jumps around in time. So is the Darksider somebody who is, wounded earlier? Is it Torben? That kind of thing. So it almost had a little bit of like, I'm sure they still do this, but I haven't watched in years. But like, when we were younger on 2020, and it was like, this person's going to speak out against Walmart. And they were like, I was a greeter at Walmart. And let me tell you about the bad practices of Sam Walton. It had a little bit of that like hidden identity vibe to me. Jennifer, what were your thoughts on the voice?
That's a really good point. Well, that changes my perspective because I found it to be scary. And I was like, well,
Yeah.
like I said, I would never be convinced if somebody was talking to me like that. I'd be like, you're a bad person. I'm not going to listen to you. Uh, however, if it's like maybe in a form of a nightmare, maybe we don't know who this voice is talking to, right? To their minions. I don't know. Yeah, but the actual, like I said, the context of what they're saying reminded me of what Mother Anastasia was kind of talking about. So it does feel like all these people are ganging up on the Jedi, which maybe would make one more susceptible to this warbled, scary voice. Yeah, that's what's interesting. I have
Yeah.
to listen to it again.
Yeah. Well, in about 24 hours, you can probably hear it in the show.
Unless it's from a later episode, because we don't have the screeners.
We don't have the screeners. Well, the quick side question: how are you both feeling about the amount of footage? Do you think we were mostly seeing footage from the first couple episodes, or do you think we're diving deeper? Jennifer?
Yeah, you know what? That's a good point. Maybe first couple, maybe like first couple, right?
Maybe up to episode 4, because that's, I think, the screeners. But I think a lot of what we're seeing is from those first couple episodes. And
good.
yeah.
All
Ken,
right.
how do you feel about how much we've seen?
Yeah, I maybe I just say that to comfort myself that it's only like the pilot. It's only the pilot. But yeah, I got that sense. I got this. Again, this is a lesson we all learned in 2015 when we sat here going, "Well, I can't wait to the third act when Luke Skywalker's just all over Force Awakens." They're hiding that from us.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, no, it's one of our very first episodes. I went on a long tear about they're gonna have to put out a new poster because the truth of this film is Luke is in a third of it, and they're just not showing us.
Oh my gosh.
I was delighted to be wrong. Delighted to be wrong.
Absolutely.
And I can't wait to be wrong again about the Acolyte.
Yes.
Moving on, another new bit of information. There was a new interview with Leslye Headland speaking to Rotten Tomatoes. And one thing that came out of that is that there's another twist on a lightsaber other than Vernestra Rose Light Whip. Here is the quote from the article. This is Leslye Headland speaking. There was a lightsaber that I wanted to have work in a particular way. It's not the White Whip. It's a different lightsaber. And when I brought it to the prop department, who have been making lightsabers for the sequels and for Solo and for the other television shows, they told me, you can't do that. That's not something that will work. And I said, please, if you'll just indulge me. It's not something I'm ready to give up. And these incredible craftsmen were able to make my dream come true for me. So not just getting to play with lightsabers, you're just getting to be in the Star Wars universe, but also collaborating with designers, both costume and production designers. Neil Scanlon, who's a living legend with the creature design and the puppetry. Not only getting to collaborate with them, but getting to problem solve with them on a real plane and not just up in our heads or working through computer-generated imagery. There's a great quote from Leslye Headland. I think, Jennifer, how do you feel about this? We'll talk about the lightsaber, but how do you feel just about this kind of story of artistic perseverance? Turning an initial no into a brainstorm group project.
I love this. I love that she had that fire within her and she believed in it. It's obviously something that she's been thinking about for who knows how long, maybe since she was a kid, right? And I just love that she was like, come on, let's figure out a way to make this work. And I also respect that it is something that maybe started off with practical elements, because I think anytime that you use anything practical, it is going to be infinitely more realistic. It will just feel real. We sense that realism. So I'm excited. I love that.
Yeah, I think it's a great story. Ken, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, in terms of the creative process, this is a great example of how it actually works. I know I've been saying this a lot, but I did that rewatch of Light and Magic recently, and it's just, it's not a small fact that all of that back in 75, 76 was, crap, how do we do this? And crap, what is George asking for? And we got to build the camera. Like, I know the great story of George coming back from London and going, this is all you guys got? You got 4 shots? I understand George's point of view on that argument, but I also understand John Dykstra and his team going, yeah, we also had to build a damn camera. Like, we had to figure out how to do this. I think of the moments in The Last Jedi. Of Ryan going, let's design it like this, and being told, but that we don't really know, we don't do that. That Star Wars doesn't do that. Well, we're gonna do it. Let's try it. Let's try. And I think that is, I love that tradition in all of creativity, by the way, of course. But the exchange of ideas and a creator with a vision who's earned this spot and has earned the right to say, just indulge me, try it. Let's get there. Let's get there together. I think that's a great thing.
Yeah, I think it's so Star Wars, both in the actual history of the production of Star Wars, like you're talking about, not just the the very first film, but those behind the scenes things of Phantom Menace, where George is highlighting all of the storyboards that have digital components, and you're watching everybody just kind of melt with concern. We're like, well, we're gonna figure it out. So it's obviously there in the production history of Star Wars, but I also just think it's the philosophy of Star Wars itself, and certainly of the Jedi. Of you work really hard and you attain wisdom, and I'm sure all of these prop people are like, we know lightsabers in and out, and there's a temptation to go like, you spent so much time, we're experts, we know what they do and what they can't do, and to be given sort of the gift from a creator of a gentle nudge of going like, because you have all of that wisdom and experience, you can take a wild leap. You can try to do something new, even though you have your list of, these are the 25 things lightsabers can do. Like, we'll use all that knowledge and try a 26th. To me, that's also kind of the philosophy that the Jedi need to keep of, we've learned a lot. Yeah. We have great wisdom, and part of great wisdom is knowing we got to question ourselves and try new things. And so I like seeing that philosophy, that's internal to the story reflected in how the story is made.
Yeah, indeed.
Let's talk about the actual lightsaber. So what is it? Jen, do you have any thoughts? Leslye Headland says, I wanted to have it work in a particular way. So maybe she isn't talking about like, this one's a can opener shape, but more something functional. What are your wild lightsaber guesses?
I just think about the building lightsabers that the kids have with the toys. Maybe it's something like that. Or my natural thing was like, oh, it's bendy. You can bend it, right? Like a Twizzler. I don't know. Yeah. I'm assuming it's going to be the dark side user's lightsaber. Maybe that might make it like cool. I mean, I was shocked with Kylo Ren's lightsaber. So who knows? I have no idea.
Yeah.
Bendy lightsaber.
Ken, do you want a bendy lightsaber?
I don't, but I'd be scared to touch it. But that'd be cool. Yeah, I'm just because every idea I come up with like is too normal. Like I'm like a light scissor, just a chomping light scissor. And then I thought, what about a loop guard? I have a little like if Kylo's got the broadsword with the cross guard, we got a little loop guard down here, and it's like a swashbuckling lightsaber. But all that just seems too pedestrian for me. It's got to be something with the hilt. For them to be like, we can't figure that out. You can't do that. We can't do that, Leslye. I don't know. Invisible hilt, bendy hilt. I don't know.
Yeah, there was the I was looking it up. The production design of Plo Koon having a gauntlet lightsaber. That's basically like a wrist thing that he wore with two sticking out. So who knows if it is more about like the hilt or like the way it's kind of practically presented. More than it's another, really wild take like the light whip. I know I'm sure there have been things like this somewhere in the EU that I don't know or remember. Like in the early Legend of Zelda games, once you got a master sword, and I'm talking like 8-bit, you thrust the sword out and then like a little bit of energy would shoot from the sword. So
yes.
Like, is there a lightsaber like I can flick it and fire the tip across the room, separate the energy from the blade itself.
That could be cool.
Playing a little paper football on your desk at school. Just bing, just flipping it. Okay. Just someone does this. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Then the image that came into my mind that cracked me up is like if it was a like when a dog gets wet and they shake it off and the water goes everywhere. Somebody has a lightsaber they can spin and
I was even thinking like a light helmet. You put it's like a miner's cap and just. And it's the Jedi's like they call him the horn of Bardata, Like,
well, I hope that I can't remember what the species for Claude is, Troma or something, Tromadite, something like that. I'll look it up. But that would be very funny if there was a Jedi like Cloud that does not have traditional limbs. They wear their lightsaber like a hat.
Yeah, a hat saber,
A
a
hat
mouth
saber?
saber.
Why not? Why not?
Yeah.
A drone saber.
No.
I want this.
I
This is
pilot
great.
my lightsaber remotely.
Yeah.
With the Force is fine. Anyway.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Google Glass saber. It's all there.
Google Glass Saber. They keep trying to make that happen. Yep. Well, anyway, it's always fun to have fun with the fun part of Star Wars, which is wild lightsabers. On that note, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back to discuss more of the Acolyte and some interesting thoughts about season 2 of Ahsoka. Back in a moment. And we are back to continue our Acolyte and Ahsoka Anakin Skywalker discussion. But first up, some more discussion of the Acolyte. Lucasfilm also released a short chat between Leslye Headland and Dave Filoni. There's lots of fun stuff in there. There's one part of this that Leslye Headland says some stuff that I think is just like extremely plot clarifying. And I kind of just let that be because I really, even if people are watching this, I don't know if they want that. I don't know. We try to be more gentle with potential spoilers. So if it comes up, it comes up. Anyway, the part of the interview that I really wanted to focus on was a little discussion about the Sith or dark side perspective that was the catalyst for the Acolyte. Leslye Headland, repeated what she's been saying, that she wanted to tell a story from the perspective of the Sith. And then Leslye Headland said, "You don't wake up thinking you're evil or that you're the bad guy, as explored by George with Anakin." Filoni says, "Yeah, I don't think Anakin ever thinks he becomes evil." Leslye Headland says, "I agree, and I think a lot of the characters in the Acolyte have to convince themselves that they are," Filoni says, "doing the right thing." And Headland agrees. They're doing the right thing. So I want to talk about that first, and then we can go anywhere else we want with the interview. But Ken, how do you feel about that Anakin quote? When Vader's out there snapping necks and impaling coworkers, what's going through his mind?
I've always there's a hole in his soul that he can't fill, and all the violence and the power in the world can't fill it, and he never gets what he wants. But I do also kind of think there's a twisted justification. This always sounds like the screenwriting 101 of the villain is the hero of their own story stuff. But that's used often and said often because it's true, and it's the value of it. I go to the first Black Panther film, and Michael B. Jordan's villain character is one of the first times I was just like, I don't know, I think I side with him. I don't know. There's something I like about his tale that I think it resonates, and that's kind of needed. That is the depth, and I think it often gets turns into that gray area conversation that I often get grumpy about or fight against. No, it's not saying the actions or the result is justified, but the path there should be understandable. There is that fine line between good and evil, and it's not always easy just to go to the light. Thanks, Qui-Gon, but it's not always easy just to go to the light because it's there. That's the point of all this. I think that you have to make these tough choices. So going to Anakin, yeah, I think that's a true perspective. I think, but I would never argue with Filoni or the Rebel and Flannel, but I think I would add to that. Like, I think at some point along the way, Anakin's like, I may have done wrong, but I cannot turn around, and I'm just gonna keep shoving it down deeper into my soul by more violence.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think in the in the Anakin's, in my opinion, phenomenal appearance in the Ahsoka show. I think He's aware he made some poor choices. I would think at that point. But I think, in his height of being a Vader. Jen, how do you feel about this conversation, this quote?
I like it. I think, it reminds me of Acting 101, which is if you're going to play the villain, you don't think of yourself as the villain. Otherwise, you're going to be telegraphing, twirling the mustache. I'm the villain. And that's never interesting to watch, right? So I think it's very smart. It's something that is in the tradition of Star Wars, but I feel like it's amping it up even more with this series. And I just like that they're bringing up George. I like that Dave Filoni was there. He was at the press event with her. I haven't watched any of the coverage because, again, I'm trying to stay away from everything. But yeah, I like it. I like to see two creators acknowledging the maker.
Yeah,
obviously.
No, I think, I think, and that's the way the video ends. Of like George is the North Star, and I think a sentiment that I have no doubt is 1000% true for both of them, but also I think a calculated message to many parts of the fandom. In terms of the Anakin thing, like, yeah, it's one of the things that I really like about the storytelling that we've got with Vader in more recent years with some of the comic book stuff, his Anakin Vader appearances in Obi-Wan and in Ahsoka. Has just made me appreciate what's actually there in the prequels more. That I think he does believe the Sheev pamphlet that he's given in the Opera House, that the Jedi and the Sith are the same. He allows himself to believe the lie that the galaxy is an awful place. It is full of cruelty, and the Jedi claim to not be a part of it, but they're just as bad as the Sith. They lie, they kill. On a personal level, they kept him from his mother and Padme. So the Sith are just being honest that the galaxy's a cruel, kill or be killed place, have power or be powerless. So I think that's the way he's kind of absolving himself of like, well, I'm just the Jedi are just too weak to admit that this is who they are. Like, this is what Obi-Wan wants to do. He just walk through the galaxy, slaughtering everyone who disagrees with him. That's what he wants to do, but he's too weak to do it, and that's why they fell. So I'm not going to be weak like that. It's just, it's not me. It's the system, man. I think is a lie that Anakin tells himself, which I think is really interesting to think about going into the Acolyte and wondering how that philosophy is going to play out in the Acolyte.
Yeah, indeed. And again, going to the Anakin thing of it all, like, if you were given the opportunity to stop someone you love from dying, would you take it? You're probably going to answer yes. You're probably going to answer yes. The path there obviously is up for grabs. I love what you're saying too. Of Anakin kind of like, y'all weak. I'm a tell it like it is guy. Tell it like it is.
I mean, that's the great back and forth with Anakin and or Vader, I guess, Anakin, Vader, and Obi-Wan in the Obi-Wan show of like, your strength has returned, Obi-Wan, but your weakness, your connection to others has remained. And then Vader ends up sitting alone in a sad lava castle while Obi-Wan has friends. So guess who's the villain now, Anakin? Very fascinated by that. And I think it is an important and ongoing conversation, particularly as we get into the Acolyte. Exactly what you're saying about, Ken, about Killmonger is a great example of, boy, do we relate to the villains when the story's well told, that we relate to their trauma. We relate to the reason that they would be angry, the reason that they're maybe even right to demand change. And what becomes, villainous is our actions. What do we choose to do? Who do we hurt in pursuit of healing our own wounds? And that's totally Vader to me, of like, yeah, you can look at a lot of things that happen to him and go, I understand, man.
I understand. I get you.
This ain't helping.
Yeah.
This ain't helping. Heal any of your wounds, dude. So given this sort of, this discussion of Anakin was coming out of a discussion of the Acolyte's desire to pursue the perspective of villains or people doing evil things, not thinking of themselves as evil. Jen, what kind of twists on this dark side perspective on the Sheev pamphlet are you hoping to see in the Acolyte?
I think exactly what you're saying is even more relatability, empathy for the dark side, and seeing how things kind of played out, why they played out, why the Jedi, how they messed up, right? And I really want to feel that, so that I'm confused and I'm like, well, maybe I am aligning with the dark side. I don't know. I really want that. I really want them to push that.
Yeah, I love that. Ken, what are your thoughts on new dark side perspectives in the Acolyte?
Yeah, I wanted to shine a light back on the Order, not a good light, but like a spotlight on how this is starting to slip. And like you're saying, Jen, I think it will. If the show's super successful thematically, it might make you think. Would I don that cool mask and the cool red blade that's also a light scissor? I don't know. I take it out to the real world where I have a pretty clear. I've made my choices on where I align politically, socially, and all that kind of stuff without a doubt. But I also still believe, it's important to not completely step on what drives other folks, to try to understand what drives other folks that might have different perspective than you, to at least understand where it's coming from, so that maybe you can communicate with them, that maybe you don't have to pull out your green blade to their red blade, that maybe you can sit down and have a Padme conversation, maybe that kind of stuff. And I think I'd like to see what the dark side perspective does to the galaxy in terms of that stuff. For me personally, it's a personal thing of hey, don't call them the flyover states. Don't crap on them. Find out why they might be angry. They've made their choices, but let's figure out. Let's see what we can do here. And the dark side person has made their choice, but maybe if it analyze how they got there, it might help future generations. I don't know. But the Jedi maybe have some hubris and cracks they're not seeing in their foundations.
Yeah. I mean, I think certainly in the real world, changes, compromise come from being able to talk to one another in a sort of one-on-one way and understand what motivates one another. I think
and have lines, as you know, have those lines.
Well, and I think
There's
that's the greatest challenge of there are so many people I understand the reasons that you are upset. I cannot agree with the way that you are trying to do that, but it has to begin with I understand that you're hurt too, and that you have these fears and these anxieties, and that's why I find this whole conversation so fascinating. The Star Wars storytelling so fascinating. For me, it's like that's the whole point of the light side of. If you had gone through everything that Anakin did, it'd be really hard, incredibly hard to go, I'm going to have faith that this is just fear. I'm going to risk that Padme is going to be fine, because I don't know. It's just fear. I'm going to take that risk, and I'm not going to, give in to all of this anger. Like, it's the hardest thing in the world to do, to not give into that anger. And I feel like for me, that's a lot of what Star Wars is about. So I love these conversations, because it's so important to have empathy and understanding where people are coming from. But I feel like often that does just turn into Darth Vader was right. And then I got to pump the brakes for myself. I'm like, nope. Yeah. The whole point is it's real hard to go, I am not going to act on this trauma. I'm going to find a better way.
Yeah, and we've said this over the years, a roundabout kind of way, or sometimes directly. I think Star Wars as a whole, as a franchise, has chosen its side, the light side. It's chosen its side, and everything is just taking us back to that point, and the good, the bad, the ugly. And you're right. It's the risk. The everything, art being up for interpretation is quite a thing. But I'm interested to see where this takes it. Yeah,
I think I'm curious with that new promo that we were talking about. That's a little bit more from May's perspective. I hope that we just get to spend a lot of time, frankly, in her confusion, being lost in the maze, and not having a coin flip moment of I'm giving into the dark side. The person who's trying to seduce me is correct. I agree with every statement in the Sheaf pamphlet. I'm all in. But rather seeing someone who is giving into anger one moment, then really plagued by doubt and fear and trauma the next. I mean, we got a little bit of that with Kylo feeling the pull to the light, but a television show, I think, has the room to really portray somebody who is lost in that maze of the way the dark side tries to lie to you. That would be really great. Any other thoughts or things we want to discuss from this interview between this discussion between Leslye Headland and Dave Filoni? Jennifer, were there any other thoughts from this that you wanted to share?
No, I think I need to watch it, because I only read the synopsis and things like that. Again, I really am trying to avoid so many things.
Yes.
But I am curious to see their dynamic together. I think it looks like their body language looks very comfortable with one another. So I'll have to go back and watch it after Wednesday.
I think it's really fun. I think Leslye Headland is just, in my opinion, amazingly charming and honest, and comes across that way. And Dave is definitely the old master of promoting Star Wars and pontificating on his Star Wars thoughts. And there is, to me, a funny vibe of like, oh, they've talked a lot. There's been a lot of sharing and discussion of these themes, and this one is just in front of the camera. Ken, do you have any other thoughts about this discussion?
No, I think that's what I liked about it, and it is short, Jen. So I'm with you. If you don't want to get too much, it's a commercial for George Lucas, I think. But I mean that in a good way, non-cynical way. And just hearing, it's not our story to tell, but hearing some of our friends at some of the fanfluencer days and the press days, there was a vibe between Dave and Leslye that was familiar and comfortable. Dave wasn't really around for a lot of that; just would kind of swing in, take the photos. It was all Leslye, and there was kind of that vibe of look at you, like it's up to you now to promote your show, and how much fun they were having, just that kind of banter. So it shows. And I've always said, Dave, sometimes I think there's been too much praise given to him. Sometimes I think he's torn down too easily, and I think he's just a Star Wars guy that knows what he's doing. I love listening to him talk about Star Wars. I've enjoyed every word Leslye Headland has said about Star Wars. So if we could get a Disney Gallery Headland and Filoni 8-part discussion series, I think I'd really enjoy it. I think we'd all learn some stuff. It's just fascinating to watch.
Yeah, I thought it was well done because this is, I think that was something that is for, Star Wars fans who know the personalities behind it. And it felt like, yep, a vote of confidence that this is in line with everything George Lucas started, and that, Filoni's sort of new role as advisor to all projects. That kind of a vote of confidence on the Acolyte. So I thought that was great. Moving on to our last story, and Claude's species, Trototome. There we go. Had to look that up because it's so great. Anyway, our last story that we're going to discuss is there was a large interview in Entertainment Weekly with Rosario Dawson and Hayden Christensen. Since they couldn't talk about Ahsoka during the SAG strikes, this was their chance to kind of talk about it a little bit. There was a lot of fun stuff in there, but I really just pulled out one thing I wanted to focus on because I was really intrigued by it and entertained by it. And this was a quote from Rosario Dawson about seeing Anakin again in season 2. It's a little bit of a longer quote, so buckle up. Here we go. This is what Rosario Dawson said. I will just say that as Ahsoka, puts on that hologram of him, Anakin, you see that there's several of them. So I think there's that potential, but I love also not just being relegated to those messages and things that we might be able to see more of in the future. We've gotten to see from the films now into the show that Anakin's been able to become this Force ghost that brings him back to Anakin, who at the end of the day, when he went and ascended to that space, that's what he's became. And I love that Ahsoka's got that access point. I love that piece has continued and you get to see it reflected in him, and that he gets to enjoy seeing what his legacy has become in a different way. And if Dave Filoni is listening, I hope we get to explore that more, because the road ahead is not going to be easy. And I think that's been one of the really cool things about this story is a lot of these folks have been able to continue. I'm very into that sort of intergenerational openness of wisdom being passed on. And I would hope that Ahsoka could still be able to access Anakin's wisdom. So this is all great. I think kind of one of the highlight questions that we'll talk about is Anakin going to be in Ahsoka season 2? But I wanted to start, Jennifer, with this. How do you feel that even the star of the show, Rosario Dawson, is making public requests to Dave Filoni?
Yeah, it makes me want to bring out my timeline, right? When is Ahsoka season 2 coming? Is it confirmed? The Mandalorian movie? I swear to God, I cannot keep up. But to me, that makes it seem like he has not written anything, and she's like saying, hey, for season 2, here are the beats that I think would be great that we touch on.
Yeah, so season 2 is confirmed. Yeah,
season 2 is confirmed.
Yeah, he
obviously, I don't think he's writing it, or maybe he's like brainstorming. He's got a lot on his plate, but why is she saying that? I don't know. It's a little funny, actually. Maybe she hopes that fans will be like, yeah, and everyone's gonna be like, yeah, and Dave Filoni will say, all right.
Yeah. Okay, I mean, I think she can probably text him. So I would, I mean, I just read this. I didn't watch it. I don't know if it's available to watch. I'm sure it was said in a jokey way, but to me, it's still funny. Like, I'm sure she's already texted him her opinions on how Anakin should appear in Ahsoka season 2. But now she's kind of taken it to the court of public opinion of being like, hey, everybody.
Yeah.
Send him some social media notes saying Anakin and hashtag Anakin in season 2. It's just kind of a wild world, Ken, what are your thoughts on it?
Sorry.
Oh, sorry. No, you go ahead, Jen.
Last thing I'll say is, isn't that how she even got involved in the project? Because people were like doing fan art of her and like pitching her. So she knows it works.
Yes.
You're so right. Like, this is just like, she knows the system. She's working it.
Anyways. Yeah.
Ahsoka's finding a way. Ken, your thoughts?
This is not just contained to Star Wars at all, but I do love the use of this modern invention we've been living with since, for me, 2002 or 3 with Friendster, right? It's just this you can get your thoughts out there, and you can maybe get some influence, both in good and bad ways. So I'm with you too, Joseph. I don't think it's done too seriously. Obviously, she can text him. He's, to your point, Jen, he's scribbled down ideas on napkins on airplanes. He knows what he's going to do, and it did work for her. It's worked for other folks. I think in some way that Sean Levy's Star Wars project is still, to me, somewhat just a campaign that's public that includes real negotiations and maybe something going on, but it just always kind of had that air of like, yeah, I'd like to do a Star Wars. I think Patty Jenkins and Rogue Squadron, we talked about that, of like her kind of going, oh yeah, no, I got to get a script in. I still want it to happen. I don't have a problem with anyone doing that. I want to be clear, but yeah, it was. But Rosario's had that joy for this character. Even her kind of stepping on the news of Anakin in it. Remember that? Her kind of getting out in front of it too much and maybe having to go, what? Oh, I didn't post that. It's fun. And there's a love and connection with this cast. You can tell. That's one of my favorite things about the series. Yeah.
A lot of great stuff in this interview that's just about them having known each other and how much fun it is to do the lightsaber fight together. So these are
that's
great.
Right. They go back. Yeah.
Yeah. They went to school together. Yeah. And Rosario's asked about how did you feel when Hayden got the role of Anakin Vader, and she's like, well, he's going to be a real good actor because he's really nice in real life, so he's going to have to act hard to be a menacing Vader. I think it's also just there's something really just fun and good, bad, or otherwise, just a truth that entertainment in the genre world has evolved so much, right? Like you go from Harrison Ford going, I don't know. I was telling George, you can't say these things. I like Star Wars and everything, but it made me be able to go do real work. Not that he's that dismissive, but there used to be I'm a serious actor and this nerd convinced me to do a sci-fi movie. Yeah. And now we just live in an entirely different world where there's still some actors like that, where they're just like, no, Star Wars is good, but I'm just there. I don't know what a wampa is. I know my character in my scene, and I'm good. And then there are actors like Rosario Dawson who are like, I would be really into Ahsoka if I were not playing Ahsoka, and I would maybe text Dave Filoni opinions about the show if I didn't happen to be the star. But I'm also the star. It's just a brave new world. It's a different dynamic.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, and I want to be clear. I'm rolling with it. I think there was a point in time too where I was a little grumpy at even some campaigns to get movie sequels made or stuff like that, where it's like it just doesn't work that way. It kind of can now.
Yeah,
and I've had to adjust my own thinking.
Yeah. The only thing I won't adjust is I'm still annoyed by the phrase "nobody asked for this."
That one will send me through a dark side rage.
Oh, boy.
Art does not need to be asked for. You can say no to it. You can say, I don't want this. And audiences do quite often.
Nobody asked for the Beatles to change their style and release Rubber Soul, Revolver, and Sgt. That's right. No one asked for it. No one asked for it.
Yep. David Bowie, we're begging for a new look. It's not how that happened. Yeah. Anyway, let's talk about Anakin. Jennifer, do you want to see Anakin in season 2 of Ahsoka? And if so, kind of in what context?
I thought that he was one of the best things of Ahsoka in Ahsoka. So I will say yes, right? I want him back. I do want them to maybe use him sparingly, or when it really will pack a punch. I think if he's constantly there, it will be like, it's more impactful if we just get him in these certain moments where Ahsoka really needs him, really needs to call on him, giving her some wisdom, as she's saying. I think that could be great. But he's a great seasoning, but for this season, I'd like it to be used sparingly.
This season sparingly, I think is a great response. Ken, what are your Anakin hopes and dreams for Ahsoka season 2?
Look, we know Filoni loves that EU. He grew up with the Zahn stuff. Episode 1 of season 2, fade in. Rosario's Ahsoka's having hot chocolate, and the ghost of Anakin shows up and says, "I can no longer be with you." There we go. We're starting. No, I like the idea. I'm with you, Jen. Sparingly. I not unlike they used him in season 1, maybe slightly less. I don't know, but I hadn't thought about the training holograms much. Like that's a great tool. You could go back. Joseph, your wonderful thoughts all the time on Force ghosts are there for when a person needs them. They're not just you're not gonna maybe they do just hang out sometimes, but usually they show up when that person needs help, and Ahsoka's gonna need some help. She's in another galaxy, and then we know that the Force Ghost of Anakin can appear there. As the ending of the show showed. So yeah, I think there's room for him to show up and be effective. And I'd love to see it again. I'm with you, Jen, too. I have some Ahsoka issues, but none of it around Hayden Christensen and his performance. I think between Ahsoka and Kenobi, he's got the chance to come back and really give some of his best work as this character. And I think there was some good work to be found in the prequels, without a doubt, despite maybe what I've said 15 years ago. I really do love him getting the chance to do this, and I think he'll get it again.
Yeah, no, I think Hayden's phenomenal. I think even scenes that continue to be debated about, what is the intent, what is the goal, the fireside romance in Attack of the Clones. Like he's playing what's there incredibly well, regardless of how you feel about what's there. He's playing it. So I love Hayden, and that Anakin focused episode is great for Ahsoka, and so great to just see the character in his totality, being able to wrestle with everything that he's been and everything he can be and all those things. If a training video was used right, that would be great. This may be a little bit too jokey, but I think so many of us are hoping for, like, is there any way Natalie Portman could come back into Star Wars? Like, what if there was a training video and Padme walked into it in the background, like, whoop! Anakin shuts it off real quick. That's probably not the way I want Padme to return, but it's just sort of cracking me up imagining that.
Yes. Annie, I'm going to send 3PO down to the store. Oh, you're on. Okay, sorry.
Yeah. Padme interrupts Anakin's Zoom call. And like,
Exactly.
we weren't supposed to know they were in the same room.
Yes.
Kind of thing. I'm joking. That's not the greatest use of Natalie Portman.
No, but funny.
If a training video was right for a little pop, that's great. But I really agree with you both. I think there's this fun idea that I think is really there at the end of Obi-Wan Kenobi show and at the end of Ahsoka show. That idea that your masters are with you always in spirit. We end with Qui-Gon, we end with Anakin, and that intergenerational wisdom that Rosario Dawson is talking about. But for me, that's like that's an idea of feeling that they're always kind of there, walking with you, the same way in real life. Those mentors who've taught us are always there with us. I think a literal appearance is for when the hero is in deep, deep need. Because I don't think it's literally like Ahsoka wakes up in the morning and Anakin's force spirit's there. It's like, how'd you sleep? That's a little much. Yeah. What's interesting to me is all statues point to Mortis. Literally, I think Ahsoka season 2 on some level will deal with some sort of spiritual realm like Mortis, like the world between worlds, Mortis itself. Going back to the Clone Wars episodes of the Mortis arc, there's visions that are maybe real, maybe not. Yep. So I think that would be an interesting way for Anakin to appear. Is he continuing to be a vision? Is he a spirit guiding her? The Mortis of it all makes me feel like there's a space for Anakin.
Yeah, because I think he's played his world between world cards a bit, and I liked it in the series. But you know what I mean? Like, not that he couldn't go back, to be clear, but like it just, you want to elevate that, raise those stakes, and you're right. All roads lead to Mortis.
Yeah. Yeah. So I would love for Hayden Christensen, for Anakin, now that we're really getting to spend more time with this character, I would love to spend a little bit more time with the sort of fully fleshed out Force Spirit version of Anakin. But yes, with a delicate seasoning, because it's a spicy season, so we must be delicate with it. Any final thoughts on Anakin or the Acolyte as we wrap up this episode, Ken?
No, I'm definitely in the let's stop the pregame talk, not with us, but like I'm excited. We're here, we're on the cusp. And it's the new Star Wars thing. You said it so well up top, Joseph. It isn't just a new show. It's a new Star Wars thing. Much like Mandalorian. You know, we didn't know. Grogu was a whispered rumor in some small corners. We just knew Bounty Hunter, new Star Wars. We didn't know what was coming, and I have that feeling here, and I'm excited.
Yeah, Jennifer, any final thoughts?
I'm really excited. I've been waiting for this show. I'm hopeful that it's going to reach a wider audience. And I'm just excited to be surprised, which doesn't always happen with Star Wars just because we are so in the bubble. But I do feel with this one, I am going to be surprised.
Yeah, no, it's nice to go in with a fewer wants. It's natural when we've lived with characters like Kenobi and Ahsoka, or even we're huge fans of Rogue One and we really want Andor to line up with it in this way, or we've been thinking about Mon Mothma since 1983 and we want her to be. It's really nice to be sort of still have hopes and dreams and all that, but to be a little free of those wants, because we've naturally been telling ourselves stories in our heads about these characters. I've never told myself a story about Kalnaka other than I want to see him, moping a little bit. Besides that, I don't know nothing about Kalnaka, and I get to learn. Yeah, very excited. My wife asked me last night if I was excited, because I was reminding her, like, hey, it's Acolyte week. And she's like, so are you excited? And it's like, yeah, I'm sure there's some things that won't work for me. There'll be things I love, but it's new Star Wars in a new era full of philosophy and lightsabers. We're lucky to have it, and I'm really excited to discuss it with you both and with the community here. So that is it. That's our last look at Acolyte before we actually get to see some of the Acolyte. Ken, you want to take us home?
I do. We are ForceCenter. We are a podcast and a show here on YouTube. We're on social media at ForceCenter Pod. Facebook page is ForceCenter Podcast. You can find the podcast a lot of spots. Just search, you'll find us. iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts are two of the big ones out there. Merch is available at tpublic.com/user/ForceCenter. And you can support us directly at patreon.com/ForceCenter. From there, get into our Discord where the discussion's already going on about the Acolyte and what it will be. We have a Acolyte section and an Acolyte spoilers section, so you can go in and discuss at your decided and chosen level there. Follow me at Ken Napzok. Go to my website, kennapzok.com. I announced last week, got my first ever headlining show at Flappers Comedy Club in Burbank on June 30th. I'd love to have any locals come on out. I'm not going to lie. I need to sell this show out. It's going to be key for my career going forward. And I can't wait to have a fun. I'm doing about 40 minutes of comedy. So coming out, information's on my website, kennapzok.com. Jen, where can they find and follow you?
That's so exciting. You can find me on most of the social media sites at Jennifer Landa, or TikTok at Jennifer Landa 1138.
There you go. Joseph, where can they find, follow, read, and get ready for the show with you?
Yeah, you can find me on almost all the social media at Joseph Scrimshaw. I'm enjoying Blue Sky in particular. If you kind of miss it, Blue Sky has an actual chronological, feed, so that when there's major breaking news, like 34 guilty counts or a little earthquake here in Los Angeles, hey, people actually responding in real time. So I'm just going to plug Blue Sky at Joseph Scrimshaw, whatever .Blue Sky is my handle there. You can find me there. You can go to my website, josephscrimshaw.com, for all the other stuff I got going on. My blog, Finish Your Monsters, more screenings of some short films. And hopefully in the next few weeks, I'll have a show to announce here in Los Angeles. So go to Ken's show, get excited about coming to shows, and then come to my show later. All that information on josephscrimshaw.com. That is it. The news has broken.